My next interview is with Brian Kozak, a trainer, coach, hockey player, mentor who for years studied under the tutelage of Jörg Feldman. He has been a heavy influence on many colleagues of mine and is renowned for his outside of the box thinking and really holistic approach to athletic development and the well-being of the individuals he comes into contact with, as well as an educator. He implements a number of interesting technologies to enhance his programming, but at the root of it all is a philosophical approach, which I think is second to none. Brian, welcome to this podcast where the focus is going to be on long-term athletic development, how to build healthy, robust hockey players, and maybe get a little bit of your insights into what trends and what direction the industry is moving in.
Well, thanks for having me on, Nikki. Um, where I am now, I'm down in Austin, Texas. I'm a Canadian from straight up from here north, Kenora, Ontario, and I'll even go a little bit about into that. So I started skating as soon as I came out. You know what I mean? In Canada, it's like you're out, you're in the game. So uh, I played all the way up through. I had the opportunity to, play some really good junior teams. And when I was 20 years old in junior, we won the national championship as the best junior A team in Canada out in Richmond Sockeye. So I had some, great hockey memories and times, and I went through the whole system. I was a little different when I was young. I was a kid that asked a lot of questions. Back then, they didn't like asking questions. Like you skate, and that's why you skate. There's no why. I'm going to tell you, the why behind it. You skate, that's it, right? You skate because you skate. Where nowadays the kids, they want to know why, right? Which is really cool. But I asked a lot of questions, and I didn't stick with one junior team. That was the way it was back. Like I'm 57 years old now, so you can just imagine way back in the 70s and 80s. So I moved from junior team to junior team because I wanted to learn how to win. I wanted someone to teach me that. I come from a very small town, so when we play the big cities, you don't win because they just have way more talent. So that's what really drove me. And I found, and at the meantime, also I was training with different guys. And back then it was like bodybuilding or powerlifting. It's not like it's so intense. And, the coaching now and training now is so good. So it was a different time. But anyways, we ended up winning all of Canada. I went and played university hockey. And then I blew my knee out and I got into training, really got into it. And, had a friend of mine said, hey, he played in the NHL, and he's like, hey, let's grab a couple kids and we'll train them. So we put the word out in our small town, and the next morning there's 30 kids, from football players to, to ringettes to hockey. It was really cool. And so we started training, and we were just picking things up where we could. I took some courses, but back then it was very limited of the courses. So that's how I got into it. And then from there, I had the opportunity of coach. I got into coaching. There was a strike at the high school, so they asked me if I'd coach the hockey team, and I said sure. So I got into high school hockey coaching, and then into midget, and we held in our little town the Air Canada. At that time, it was the Air Canada National Midget Championship, so age 15 to 17 hockey players. So that was quite the thing for our small town. We missed it by one goal going to the championship. We had an amazing goaltender. In hockey, it's all about the goaltender, right? If you got a great goaltender, you can steal some games. So then from there, I went and coached in the BCHL Junior Hockey League for a bunch of years, and I had a training facility out there. And that's where I met Jörg Feldman, who ended up being my mentor for over a decade. And that's how I got to, I flew around the country meeting all these different trainers through his group. And that's how I ended up getting down here with Aaron Davis and Patrick Estes. Just leading edge guys that are always, pushing the envelope and trying to see what works, right? Like, let's get rid of the fluff and see what works. Make it simple so that people can understand, because it can get pretty complex. So as all this was going on, I kept coaching hockey. So I coached Bantam. We won a couple championships, provincial championships. And then I went back to my hometown and coached some hockey there. And then I've been consulting, and then I finally moved down here, bit the bullet, and I'm down here about 6 to 8 months a year, and what we're doing here is bringing it all together. So what the difficulty in what we do is, if a player comes, so say a promising player wants to play junior or college, and he's got the talent and he wants to get better physically and mentally, those guys are pretty easy to work with because we get all in, right? So what we do the whole picture. We take your blood work, we get you on the table, we make sure everything's aligned, and then you get to come to me, right? And then so now we're testing you, assessing you in the sport, in the dry land. We're going to train with how we're going to train you. We set up a program, and over the next 4 or 5 years, we get you to a certain state of health and performance. That's the ultimate. Now the pros, they're a little different because they already have their teams, or they have a guy here and a guy here. Plus they have a trainer in the summer, then they have a trainer with their team. So that situation's a little more difficult. We're still working on, we don't know the ideal, well, I know the ideal situation, but we're still trying, how can we fit into that, right? So with some of our clients, it's really important because people have different ideas, right? And if we don't assess it, if we don't see it, what we can see, what the technology can show us, before it was a heart rate monitor, right? Which was the ultimate for me when I first got one. I can see the heart, I can make zones. I just didn't understand that it's only the heart rate. It's not the other part, the stroke volume, how much blood is pumping, right? But then we got HRV, and then we started pulling blood, lactate, and then we got the physio flow. Then we got all these different technologies. So now where we're at is we can tell you how long a hockey player can last skating full out and how long it takes them to recover. We can see their muscular strength, the contraction force. We can see all these other biomarkers that we can help assess and train the athlete, so better health and performance. How's that for an opening?
That's great. Can we kind of, I'm impressed. Well, that must be all that respiratory training you do.
That's right.
Yeah. Which we'll come back to. I think that's a really important part of it. So this is effectively the simplicity on the other side of complexity, because I lost count of the number of years, but you're 57. You've been in hockey since before you could walk, ideally. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking probably, at least in a coaching capacity, what, 40-ish years? I'm sure you were taking a keen interest in it already in your teens. And even then, it's still an evolution. It's still a work in progress. And there's where you're at and what you'd like to be able to do versus what the players have the capacity to do, in as much as what's led them up to the point of getting to where they're at in their sport, whether they're a collegiate level player, professional player, or somebody who's preparing maybe to get into the junior or collegiate level. So I think things have changed pretty significantly, obviously, since you were in and around the sport in a playing capacity. What does a well-rounded player look like if somebody comes into you and you assess them? First of all, I guess, what key biometrics are you interested in? And then how do you match that up with the technical pieces? And which one do you put more stock in your role?
That's a great question.
That's four questions.
Yeah,
I rolled into one.
Yeah, it is. That's a good Canadian question. I mean, because there's a bunch of questions hidden into it. So what age, if you want to start with the young guys, so you're 12 and 13-year-olds. So in Canada, that's your Pee-wee age, Pee-wee and Bantam. So you're 12 and, what is it? Bantam's 13, 14, Pee-wee's 11, 12. That age group is obviously totally different than when they're already going through the change, right? They're still young men, kids, but they're becoming men at 15, 16, 17, even now, maybe at 13, 14, we have some kids that are very advanced. So it's different in that way. But if we're talking about the older kids, so you're possibly some advanced 13, 14-year-olds, but you're 15, 16, 17 and above that, it for me, it's always the whole package. It has to be. There's not one thing, and there's not one tool, and there's not one training device, right? When they come, is even the little ones, as soon as they come into the gym, and I have a gym, I used to have a gym up in Canada, I sold to my buddy. But even when I go back home, I do some work with the young kids there, and it's the first thing is when they come in, it's all about attention. That's the number one thing. There's no assessing or nothing. I'm watching them. Where do they put their shoes? How do they take their shoes off? Do they just throw them in the corner? And then usually I have a group of players, so usually it's 8 kids to 30, right, in the gym. And so I'll ask the kids, do you have any good music? Who's the music guy? There's always 1 or 2 kids, and they'll put the music on their tunes, right? And so the kids get pumped up, and we play a simple game, right? It's everyone has a volleyball or a little soccer ball. You can even use a tennis ball, and I just want you to chuck it about 3 feet in the air, and I'm watching all the time to how their attention level is, and that's the key. If you can't get their attention, how do you train them? That's the number one thing in teaching is get their attention. So you set the environment so it's fun. They have their tunes on, and we're playing this game which they don't know, and I want to see what they do. So I'll stop and I'll say, okay, look how you're standing. If I was running at you, if I was skating on the ice right now, if your legs are standing still, your knees are locked out, what's going to happen? Right? So we're teaching them, we're hitting these little hidden things in there. But it's a game because I'll start running at them and I'll yell like, hey, you know what I mean? A guy will be like this. So we're getting them having fun. We're getting their attention. Their eyes are on me. And even the ones that don't want, there's kids nowadays, there's so many different labels and we can talk about that later. But for me, I'm not a labels guy, right? So whatever, if the kid's just looking over here, I'm like, hey, I got 2 eyes. You can move from one to the other. That's no problem, but you got to stay on one of them. We have fun. And then what we do is, okay, when I throw 3 feet in the air, it's 3 feet. And when the ball lands, it should land. That's my game. Because if you can do this, you earn the next game. And then my other coach will come over and I'll throw a ball to him. We throw the ball back and forth, 3 feet, lobbing in the air, right? And now we're just lobbing this ball, right? And we're just playing. And now if you get that, now I have a ball, my partner has a ball, he tosses his ball to me. Before his ball hits my hands, I got to throw my ball in the air, toss his ball back and catch mine. And the mind doesn't want to do that because it has a ball coming this way and it has a ball going this way. It does all funny things, right? It'll throw my ball at him and throw his ball up. And there's so many hidden games in that, right? 1, attention. 2, it's a skill, right? 3, what are they doing with their narrative? Are they whining? Are they complaining? Are they blaming the other person? Oh, come on, throw the ball better. Are they cutting themselves down? Which is the worst thing to do, right? Don't cut yourself down. There's lots of people who do it, right? Just don't do it to yourself. These are all skills I'm listening to get the idea of the person. How's their narrative? How's their attention level, right? And then we just play. And then from there, I'll go, okay, look at your shoes. It's not that I'm overly concerned about perfect shoes, but watch me. I'll flick my shoes towards the wall and I'll flick them. Now, if they land perfect against the wall, no problem. But if they're not, I go over and I put them together. Why? And one of the kids will go, well, obviously you've been teaching us about attention for the last 15 minutes, probably to sharpen your attention. There it is. Why do I make my bed? Not to make my wife or your mom or whoever, your dad or whoever happy. It's because when I make the bed, I have to be there. I have to have my attention. Because the level, as you rise in the game of hockey, it's all about the attention level. Anything anyone's good at in their life is because they put their attention on it. So that means if attention's a skill, if I sharpen that like a samurai sword, I can cut through any problem, any situation, because there's no problems, there's only situations. We make them a problem by changing the narrative. If I make my attention so sharp that anything I put my attention, I'll do well. Now, if I have talent in that area, maybe I'll play some college hockey or pro. So that's the first thing we get. We work on where they're at. Now, physically, if it's the young kids, we just want to play. We want to play games, right? We want to work on skills. How can we tie the skills and getting physically stronger, their joints, everything together? That's a key, right? With us, we definitely have our guys look at them and make sure everything's balanced, right? And this is where we can bring the technology in. We have a tool called the Moxie. It can show us a difference in both legs, right? Or both arms. So We put that on them. We have them play around some games, better on the ice, but we can do it in the gym. And we can see if there's balance. Oh, I broke my leg. Okay, so that leg hasn't healed properly in the sense that there's an imbalance, right? Whatever that means, right? So then our guys can readjust on the table, give them correctives. With us, we can train that the energetics, not going too deep. We can train that so that the athlete right there is super balanced. And now, as he gets older, that old injury doesn't come up and cause a groin tear or abdominal tear or separated shoulder, right? So we get those things when they're young. We want to get a balanced, healthy athlete, right? That loves playing the game. Make it fun. Is it working out? Absolutely. There's tons of games in there, right? So we'll use, if anyone whines, complains, excuses, blames, or cuts down another person or themselves, worser, the worst thing you can do. We can say worser because it is worse than worser.
It's way worser.
It's way worser, yeah.
Yeah.
Instantly, as soon as we catch it, we're a team. So we stop to go, hey, Cozy just said can't. We don't use that word. It's a negative word. So we get down in push-up position and we just do 3 push-ups, but I got to yell military style. So super loud, 1, then they're 1. They love it. It's not punishment. It's getting stronger. How can that be punishment? What it's doing is interrupting the unconscious stuff. We're training the mind to be attentive to what we're doing. When you get to the top levels, what do the top trainers say? And here's a great thing to think about, like one of those puzzles, whatever they call them. When I talk to most top guys, they're like, at the top level, pretty much there's the odd guy that the skill level, like McDavid or, those guys, that's just something incredible, right? But overall, the physical abilities are pretty similar, right? Especially, definitely line 3 and 4, right? But overall, pretty much what the difference is the mental part, how they see, how they read, how they think the game, right? So when you ask top guys, they're like, 90-10 or 95-5, the mental ability to the physical ability. So I always ask them, how much time do you spend on training the mental versus the physical?
And I'm curious, do they even have an answer for that?
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much, right? And then they can say, well, that's what the sports psychologist is. That's a different game, right? But that's our game. We do it anyways as trainers. As soon as I walk through that door, I got to be on my game, right? No matter what happened before, I've got to be in that place. I've got to be super attentive. I have to have that trained mind. I have to understand these basic skills that the number one thing is get their attention, then play, make it fun. So most of these guys aren't going to go to a high level. You know what I mean? If they play junior, oh, awesome. How many people they're going to meet? How many, how small does the world become when you have all these different connections all through the world, right? And you learn how to play as a team. There's just so many benefits of the sport. Now, if they go to college, well, saves you a bunch of money if they get a scholarship, your parents, right? Plus, now they meet a bunch of other people and get an education. And just, that small, narrow margin, if they have the skill and they have the attention level and they put the work in, they might make minor pro. They might play in Europe or they might play somewhere here. And the even smaller ones might make pro, right? What we want all those other ones that don't make it, we want them to play too, right? All the rec leagues, all the fun leagues, I still play. You know what I mean? I'm 57. I go back home to the summer tournament, a bunch of us old guys play. It's fun. That's what we want, and we want that to grow the game and the kids also. Now, on the technical side, the older kids, or as those kids start coming up, we really work on their breathing. It's the number one thing. So I as soon as once we get them in there having fun, I say, okay, stop. How's your breathing? Right? When we're playing that ball game, it's a super difficult game. There's only 2 kids in 15 years that have ever got it the first time. A juggling game, 2. So they start complaining. They start making excuses. And what do they start to do? I say, what were you doing with your breathing? Pay attention to your breathing. And the majority of the kids, they hold their breath. So then we give them a simple game. We say, take this, because it's always with you, right? Your phone. When that thing rings, when it calls your name, Cozy, answer me, pick me up, Cozy, right? Just stop and think for 1 second. Just pause, create a little space. What's my breathing doing? Just find out yourself. You got to figure things out. I'm not here to tell you everything. If you don't know something about hockey, I'll give you one thing, you earn the next. The thing about life is you got to figure it out. That way, no matter what happens to you in life, because only a small 0.001% make the NHL. More make minor pro, more make Europe and college and junior, right? But the rest don't. So we should this sport should give you the skills that you can go and do whatever you're going to do in life and figure it out. The super important skill that goes hand in hand with attention. So we get them to figure it out. So most kids will say, I hold my breath. So it's like a balloon all day. Phone rings. Parent yells at me. Teacher gives me heck. Right? Something's on Twitter, Tweeter, or whatever they call it. Right? All day they're creating this sympathetic, they're creating this stress. They're holding on to it. I ask kids, I say, put your hands on your lap. Right? And most kids, when they put their hands on their lap, their hands will be like this. Like they're holding a baseball. That's the norm. That's my normal. There's no tension there. There's a little bit, but I could have a lot of tension. But why? I'm wasting energy. Kids' hands should be like this. Just relaxed. There's nothing pulling. The tendons and the ligaments aren't pulling. The muscles aren't tight. They're not holding their breath. How you breathe is how you think. So we tie that into all the games they're playing. How's your breath? When do you notice your breath? So we'll have them do sprints like a racing game, for example, right? Carrying something or juggling something, right? Or you got to throw a med ball, light med ball, catch it and throw it again, pass it to the next guy, whatever we're doing, right? Leapfrog or whatever. But what we want to do is create them so they're breathing like that. When did that happen? And they'll say, oh, on the third set or whatever, I could feel it. And what happened with your coordination? Were you better or worser? And they'll go, worser. So your breathing's the marker. Your breathing tells you when you're into survival. That's it. We don't have to tell them anymore. We don't have to say, oh, that's when the SMO2 is here and the THB is creating a venous occlusion. We lost them. All we got to say is your breathing is like the RPMs on the car. That tells you when you're revving too high, you're in survival. Things are shutting down, you're losing coordination. Well, how do we fix that? How do we train that? Breathing? So we give them breathing techniques. Just before you're going to sprint, you blow off a couple of big breaths so that we don't have to tell them they're blowing their CO2 level down, giving them more time, right? A second on the ice for a 13-year-old is about 2.5 meters. That's the difference between a game-winning goal or stopping the game-winning goal, right? So we give them these little things that they can do, and it transfers to in the game. Every time you're gliding, what should you be doing? Oh, blowing off some air. Yeah, getting some fresh air in, blowing off the air. We don't have to tell them CO2. After we do, as they start to get the technology on, then it's an easy switch. See this Moxie, see this device? That's your CO2 level. That's why you're not recovering quick enough. If you blow that off, what happens? Oh, I recover quicker. There it is. So once we tie all those things, go ahead again.
Oh,
I
yeah.
keep on going.
No, it's great. I have a friend who's actually goes to these retreats. So he's gone through some meditation techniques with me. Obviously, he picked up that I was Scottish and I live in a highly strung state with a lot of retained angst and anxiety and guilt. So he's what you're describing is actually very, very similar in what he does when we sit and we do mindfulness work, where he'll say granular to the point where he'll say, I want you to feel the cold breath as it comes up across this part of your lip into your nostrils, and then as you breathe out, I want you to have the sense of that warmth of the air, just so you're so hyper focused on the breath that you learn that attention to detail. And it's that's me learning that in my 40s. I still notice when I play soccer because, like you, I'm still involved, and I do tell the kids or anybody who'll listen that my greatest friends have been people that I've met through playing soccer. And the first thing I do when I move to a new town is get a soccer team, because that becomes then my network. I have a social security blanket there, and I have my colleagues, and that's great. But I notice when I play still, if I go into a challenge, sometimes I'll be holding my breath to the point where I'll go poof, like that. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm obviously not breathing. at all. And then I'm wondering why I got to go and sit out for 5 minutes whilst I recover.
Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. The meditation you tied into something that's super important. We really try and stay away from the word meditation because of the connotations with it, right? It's like saying yoga. Over here, we have different ideas about it. So when I left my mentor, when he finally kicked me out and said, "Hey, you got to get up and start sharing this stuff, right? You can't keep staying with me." I said, "Well, what's you know?" So I went all into Eastern yoga. I went and lived over there, became a teacher trainer in Hatha yoga, and then for the next decade, I traveled all over the world, just meeting people, yogis, and training with them, and figuring out and how did it, what are they doing different that we could use for us, right? Not one for us, meaning to make this life better, the quality of life. That's what everyone wants, is a better quality of life, and we realize that more as we get older that we might have sacrificed some of the quality of life for a bigger house or a bigger car or whatever, right? But that's the goal, and in that meditation, if we just change it and say, hey, the ability to put your attention on anything, that's meditation. That's it. And the way I explain it to kids, I say, hey, when you're playing the game, right? Not the little tykes, you know what I mean? Because they're just having fun. They'll skate right to mom and dad. It's awesome, right? It's just pure joy. I'm talking to kids when they start to get a little more serious about it, and so you're say your pee-wee age, so 11 or 12 and up. You can hear the fans screaming. You can hear your coach, you know what I mean, and maybe the other coach, and you can hear other people screaming. But do you stop and pay attention to it like when you're little? No, you play the game. And especially when there's hitting involved. I don't know what age it is here down in Texas, but at the bantam age, now you can hit when the guy's going the other direction. Whoa. So you better keep your head up, right? You better see. Your head doesn't have to be up, but your eyes have to be up. So you can't afford to look here and there. Okay, that's it. That's attention. That's it. That's meditation. Just take that and put it through the rest of your life 24/7. That's the skill. Do we have ways of doing that? Yeah, we use the breath, and there's some simple ways we can do it. We're going to teach you that through being with the coaches every day. That we're always working. It's just hidden in there, right? But that's basically meditation. Being able to, they call it being present, right? Keep your attention. If my attention's on your nose right there, right? Nothing's taking it off. I'm looking at it. That's it, right? Oh, a dog started barking. That reminded me of my dog Kane when I had him when I was 6 years old. He's my favorite dog. I used to swim with him, right? All of a sudden, I'm gone, right? I tell kids when I go to schools and do presentations to classes and that, I'll say, do you want to do 50% less homework? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, right? It's okay. It's going to sound funny, but all you got to do this is do it for 40 days. And if it doesn't work, come back and I'll give your money back. And they're like, well, we're not paying you anything. I said, well, perfect then. Just do it for 40 days, right? So 50% less homework, right? Maybe more. So when you're sitting there and I'm listening to the teacher, and I always ask them, I say, raise your hand. And I'm educated as a teacher also. So I'm like, how many good teachers do you have? Pull up the fingers. And unfortunately, it's not too many, right? But when you get those ones, you know it because they're all in. They're paying attention. They just want you to figure stuff out, right? Okay, so you don't have to worry about them. You're on in that class. They keep your attention. But the other teachers, right, or coaches, when they're talking and a thought takes me away, my ears still hear them. What I lose is the pathway to retrieve that information later. That's it. I just don't strengthen the pathway, right? It's like I don't have long, I used to have long, like your hair. There's one strand, right? Now there's 2 strands, 3 strands, 4. You know how it is. It makes it super strong. It's rope. Same idea. If you're talking, the teacher's talking, and I thinking of my dog, we used to swim together by the waterfalls in the Winnipeg River, and then I come back, I heard my ears, the 5 senses are always picking everything up, right? But there's no thick pathway. The pathway's a stone here. There's not a direct pathway. So all you have to do is, as soon as you catch your mind going away, work on your hockey skills. That's your attention. The number one skill is attention. As soon as I catch it, I smile because I know, right? If you teach me how to freaking lift the puck up and do the Michigan, I'll do it. It'll take me longer because I'm, you know, I have a lot of concussions, so it's going to take me a little more time, right? But I'll do it because I know if I keep practicing, I'll figure it out. Same as this. So every time I catch my attention going sideways on a beautiful thought about my dog, I smile and I zip it back because I know the more that happens, the less it'll happen. The more I catch it, the less it'll happen. And now on a deeper level, every thought takes energy. So if I can put my attention back on this, the thoughts lessen. That means I have more energy. Life's all about energy, right? When you're tired and sick, what do you want to do? Close the blinds, put a TV movie on and go to sleep, right? But I can work you out super hard. And if you got something to do with your kids or whatever, you'll have a shower and go do it, right? You can do it. It's about energy. So the more energy we have, the better quality of life. So now when you're sitting in there and all of a sudden the teacher is kind of losing you because you're taking a class that you have to take and you can't see how it's going to help you in life, that's okay. Use it to sharpen your attention. Thought comes, catch it, smile, bring it back. Now at the end of the class, I just keep doing that. So I keep my attention on my breath or on something on the teacher, a dot. Say he's got a dot between his, say he's a frowner, right? Or he's got a pimple or a birthmark, whatever, right? His mustache. I'm just on him. And I get on my breath. Now I'm doing two things. Ooh, I'm up in the game. Now I'm freaking shoot forehand, backhand, right? Maybe I'm going to get saucer passes. So I look at one eye, right? I'm just playing. But I'm hearing and I'm making a path. And at the end of the class, all you do is write down, especially if you said this is going to be on the next exam, write it down. But I just write down what stuck out. 4 or 5 things. Just one word can be enough. That's it. Then when you get home that night, before you eat supper is ideal because an empty stomach, you're sharper, right? It's just chemicals. It works. It just works. But again, just try it. Don't believe a word I said. Just try and play. Figure it out. You'll know. So you go over those 5 things. Anything else that he said? Oh yeah, a couple more things. That's it. Next morning, wake up. First thing in the morning, I'm sharp, rub my hands, do my thing, smile. I made it through another night. I'm alive again, brush my teeth, do my stuff, sit down before I eat breakfast, go over those 5 things. Anything else? Maybe I want to look at the book because this one thing I want to check out. Or nowadays, you got ChatGPT or whatever they're called and Google and all these different things. Pull a couple things up, get a couple pictures in your mind, done. You got it. 50% less homework. And you sharpened your attention.
And it was free.
And it was free. And you got to be doing it anyways. You're sitting in class anyways.
Yeah. So we got this far into it, and what I think is great is we've really not talked much about physical training at all. We haven't really talked much about technical training. I know you mentioned the Michigan, and now I know what that is. I had no idea what that was. I just thought it was the state, but I've even seen one. So specifically, and I'm sure this is not a unique to Texas thing, but we have this ongoing discussion down here about year-round hockey practice, competitive hockey, and training. What you've spent a pretty substantial portion of your time describing right now is non-sport specific stuff, and actually it speaks quite well to a lot of the other long-term athletic development, even actually LTAD theory, where there's certain characteristics that somebody who is athletic needs to have, certain foundational skills, and it seems like those things are just getting bypassed in favor of sports specificity, which is a bit of a buzz at the moment. But is your attitude or opinion that, you know, if the kid loves it, let them do it to their heart's content, or do you think there's a certain point where we need to say, you know what, it might be time to explore other movements, other sports, other hobbies, because this is getting to a point where I think it's too much?
Okay. So I told you I live in Canada. You can't tell by the accent. So the parents, you know what I mean? Like anything, right? It's, I remember, I'll tell you a quick story. Two players I trained when I was younger back in my hometown. One guy ended up being captain of Ottawa, and the other guy, he played, I can't remember, Eau Claire down in the States. He ended up being an assistant captain. Really good people, really good players. They come back, finish their career, and they're setting up one. Yeah, they both set up business in my hometown. And I said, hey, we played Thursday night hockey together, and said, hey, it's time to give back to the kids. And they're like, well, we're busy. I said, yeah, so was I. But I trained you guys, right? And you still owe me money. so, so, uh, so they end up coaching. They took a team, a bantam rep team, and in Canada, the parents can go a little wide, right? They think their kid, we've got to do a better job educating people, right? It doesn't happen in volleyball or like in Canada in basketball at the high school level. It doesn't happen. But in hockey, every kid's going to make it, right? So they get a bantam team that's really a lot of kids that had other ideas in sports, a lot of skateboarders and stuff, some really interesting kids, but hockey wasn't their passion. So it was a difficult year. It was a great learning year for them, right? They would come back every Thursday. What would you do in this situation, Cozy? I'm like, hey, this is what I do. It's about fun. You got to make it fun. Da, 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 da. But anyways, they're having trouble with one young man, and so that's age 13 and 14, and he just keeps taking penalties, and he doesn't care, right? And not good, like not a good penalty, like nothing that in our zone, stopping a goal, right, open net goal. He's on his own page. So they sit him for a shift, and they go, okay, you can go back up now. It wasn't a punishment, so you can think, see what the other guys, be a good teammate. They know the words to say, the phrases. And the kid goes, nah, I'm not going to go back on. And they're like, what? Like, then why are you here? I don't know. I want to be with my buddies, right? They say, okay, sit another shift. So they sit him another shift. Then they go, you want to go back on? He goes, no. He says, I hate you almost as much as my dad does. So this poor kid's getting in the car every day with his, after practice or a game, and the dad's on him like how bad these coaches are, right? That's our job as coaches. We got to do a better job of that, right? When I coach, I always brought all the parents in. We had a bunch of different meetings, and I said, look, you're my lawyer. You're my accountant in the small town, right? You do this, you do that. You're the Zamboni guy. We all have our jobs. I never come and tell you how to do your job. And I know all you guys. There's no way you can play hockey with me. And there's no way you can coach like me. So let me do my job, right? I'm the best guy to do this job with your kids, right? And the hockey's second to me. They're going to be people that figure it out. Their attention level is going to be sharp. They're going to have way better school marks because they're going to do it. I'm going to teach them life skills. The hockey's second. But when you put the horse in front of the cart, they're way better. It works way better, right? The only way it works the other way is a couple kids that are super skilled anyways, right? They're going to be good no matter what. So when we think of, you get a kid that loves it. I had a guy, great guy from my hometown. He wanted to bring his grandson to me at age 4. And I'm like, you know what? I said, bring him out. I have the midget AAA program team coming. So there's 22 guys. Bring him out. I want to see how he is with the old kids. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, just bring him out. So he comes and he's super shy. So I said, you want to help Cozy out? He's like, I said, as soon as these guys stop, we're going to set up for the next drill. So I'll tell you, I'll draw it on the board where you put the cones. Can you do that? And he's like, yeah, right. So that's all we did. Then when the kids left, I put tennis balls on top of these cones, 3 cones, and I shot the tennis balls off the cones. Then I put the tennis balls on the cones, and I went down and talked to the grandpa. That kid went down there. I'm almost going to get all fired up about this. The kid hits the balls off. He picks it up for the next half an hour, just doing that. And I said, that's different. I said, how is he? He goes, he sleeps with his helmet on. We have to take it off. Like the kid loves hockey, right? Those are rare. Those ones, like that kid trained with me after that. Like he just come and helped me out. It wasn't training, it was playing. You know what I mean? But now he's just dominant. He's just a dominant player, and he passes. He's not like a guy that he scores 10 goals a game, but he's also setting up everyone because he doesn't want to score 10 goals a game. Those are rare. Those ones, all in. Get them around it, let them play. That something's going to happen. It's amazing. Also, get them into everything else, karate, especially soccer. For me, I remember when I first, as a 16-year old, went away for junior. The pass hit my skates, and I looked down to find the puck. That's it. My head was in where, right? Bang, guy hits me. So that won't happen again. I went back. I started soccer. I was horrible at soccer, but I could run. The beautiful thing about soccer now, I could use my feet to pick up the puck. The beautiful thing about soccer is in getting more into the technical, the physical side, you need a base, right? The old anaerobic aerobic model, it's out the door, right? I'm not cutting it down. It just doesn't exist. The technology shows us it's proven. It just takes time, right? When new technology comes out, people play with it and they figure things out. That's what we did with the NIRS, the Portamon, then the Moxie, right? So you figure that out. It's like the breathing. Once we figure that out, along comes a smart young man or woman, and they go, hey, I'd like to do my PhD on this. So they do that, then it gets peer reviewed, then it finally gets into the school system and it gets taught, right? That's 15 to 25 years. So what we're doing now is you're not going to see for a long time yet, right? So it's really important to understand that and how we can get these kids to amazing places. Now, they have to play other sports because all these other skills, all these other kids they're going to meet, all these things, life skills they're going to get, that's the bonus. That's it. The bonus is those skills transfer to their sport. Okay? Eye-hand coordination, ping pong, badminton, all these different games they can play, right? Handball, whatever they can play. Lacrosse is super good, right? All those things are going to help. Now, the base of it is, back to the anaerobic aerobic model, all it is basically is everything you do with oxygen. If you don't believe me, just do some squats and hold your breath. Actually blow all your air out and do squats. See how many you can do. You got to breathe, right? So you need oxygen. To make it super simple, if I need oxygen, why wouldn't I train it? I asked trainers, do you train all the muscles? They're like, yep. I said, okay, perfect. So you train the legs, lower body, yep. Arms, upper body, chest, yep. What about the respiratory muscles? Because the lungs don't breathe by themselves. There's about 10 pounds of muscles, respiratory muscles. And how do you train those? Not by sit-ups. You have to train them specifically with the machine, right? Here's our plug, our in-X breathing, right? So there's a couple devices out there that you can breathe that it comes from the inside out. So a sport like soccer, what happened for me, and it happened because I was horrible when I started playing at 16, but I could run. And I would just run and bug everyone on the field, the other team, obviously, and sometimes my own guys, because I'd run into them. But I would just run for the full 60 minutes, right? I'd just run. And I got better because I've had my attention on it, sharpened it. So the skills started coming. I carried a soccer ball in my foot all the time. For you, it's football, right? The proper term, right? So I got good at it. But what I noticed was I could last longer and do more shifts in the game. Where'd that come from? That long, consistent training, right? Not to get deep into it, you need that. That allows you to recover quicker. That gives you better health. That does so many more things. So you need that. Yes, we can do some neat things with short sprints, but you need that base. So yes, they should play a bunch of sports. And high school, man, you can play so many things, especially down here.
Especially down here. You get poached almost if you're good at, if somebody hears you're good at another sport, like, oh, you should really try football. Here's football. Oh, yeah. Probably not. I should say that down here. I get all sorts of trouble. I've just alienated like 70% of kids in a sweeping statement. They'll just go, these Scots guys, they don't know what they're missing out on. So I think that's interesting, and it's in line with what is great is when practical experience actually meets the theory. Doesn't happen that often, or at least the theory just started to evolve. There's a few interesting position statements on LTAD. I think the way that you've described it there is a lot more organic than prescribing, because I think the concern is that you have this pie chart basically of stuff that people should be able to do. And the problem is that people then want to formulaically go through that and say, okay, now we have to do eighth of the year doing throwing sports, then we have to do an eighth of the year doing track, and then we have to do an eighth of the year doing this. And it's just not, that's not a realistic skill acquisition model. But it's great to hear that the theory is sound, but it's the art of the application. And then the personality of the kid that you're also working with. And then we can start to talk about, right, what should you be spending your year doing, or the next 3 years doing from a physical development standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it perfectly, and very succinct, very clear. It's being a teacher. If you're teaching, once you're a teacher, you can see it, even as a coach. But a coach it's so much easier because you usually have a bunch of kids that want to be there. But when you're in school and you're teaching like history or some course that a lot of the kids, especially in teenage years, they're like, wow, why are we taking this, right? To get their attention is the most important thing, right? Now, how do you do that is you have to use so many different ways as a teacher if you're teaching a course like that. But what we have as parents and even like I went back and I offered my services to we call it to Hockey Canada. And then we have from Hockey Canada, they're the governing body over each minor hockey system. I'm not sure if it's the same here. So we have a minor hockey system that's a bunch of volunteers, right? So I went in and I said, look, this is how I see it, right? We've got to make this fun. It has to be games, right? And even our whole city, so many kids used to play hockey, but now there's other options: soccer, basketball, volleyball, and all these different things, right? We should be sharing these kids. And I showed them the underlying theory. And here's the thing. I said, in school, if I force someone to do something, you got to study this. Good luck, right? The ones that see the bigger picture down the road in education, they'll do the work. Begrudgingly, they'll do the work. But I'm going to lose a bunch. And school's about just getting it. The school's set up for a certain low percentage of people, right? You know what I mean? It's not, everyone's school's not set up. Who's going to be a lawyer, a doctor? Just not set up that way. So what we want to do in school, what I wanted to do was, what do you like? Tell me, show me. How can we tie this in that could possibly help you down the road? Because we got to do this. But let's do it not just from this book. How's history going to help you in sports? How's this going to help you, right? Well, in hockey, I want to know every guy before I jump on the ice, right? I want to know everything about that team, especially if I'm the general manager and the coach and a player. Is that defenseman left hand playing on the right side? Whoa, I'm going down that side unless he's the best player, right? There's all these little things I can see. But school education, the main thing in education, it teaches us to do something that we don't want to do, right? It teaches us discipline, right? Well, how about if they could see the picture why they do that? That this can help me in another sport, or this can help me in this, and this can help me in that. In sports, it's even easier because what do you like? Like, so in our gym, you want to play soccer today? Do you want to play handball? Do you want to play ping pong? We all have these different games we expose them to, right? And then you see some kid that just loves ping pong. Well, that's what he's going to play. Yes, we got to do this stuff too. We got to lift some weights. We got to do this, right? We're on the impulse machine. We're doing a bunch of stuff. That just ties in to make you a harder serve or more spin on the ball. That's how we try and tie all those different things in.
Is the lack of ice time detrimental to the development? As in, are they handicapped compared to individuals in Canada or Minnesota for that one factor? Or is that something that can be potentially overcome with a more rounded developmental strategy over a period?
Well, let's start from the end backwards. They got to get off the skates, right? That's the thing. There's the opposite in Canada, right? It's just they're on the ice too much, and they have to get off the skates and at least a couple months stay off them, right? You talk to our guys Aaron and Patrick, like the skating, the things it does to the hips, right? And the goaltender, my goodness, right? the butterfly on their knees and everything. So we've got to get them off the skates. That's for sure, for sure. Playing some different sports. Now the other end on the end down here is get them on the ice as much as possible. Like if you can get on 2, 3 times a week is great. And as you get older, obviously more. But in Canada, in our small town, the ice we only have 2 rinks. We should have 4, right? So until it freezes enough that we get on outdoor rinks, we're limited ice time because there's just not enough rinks for the amount of hockey players. So what we do is we do stuff in gyms. We play floor hockey. We play all different types of games, right? And you still work on skills. There's some really, like in my gym, I have a shooting area, right? I have slide boards. It's a V skating machine, right? We have some different things. In the gym I had out in BC, we had a skate nut. So put your skates on, your harness in. We played, right? And kids can work on skills and have lots of fun on those things. So, and then what we did in Quesnel, they were way ahead. This town I was in, they realized we don't need the full ice surface for little kids. Like let's make 3 or 4. Like let's split to 3 zones, and we can have 3 teams on the ice, right? So now we've doubled or tripled our ice time. So things like that. You want to get on the ice the more, and as you get older, obviously you want them on the ice, 3, 4 times a week, right? College level, it's ideal. You practice during the week. You have a day off or 2 maybe, and you play on the weekends. That's the ideal way. Junior hockey's gone that way too, as much as possible. They still have mid games, but yeah, you if you get them on the ice 2, 3 times, or you get them on the ice 2 times a week, and get them in the gym playing floor hockey and do some skill work stuff. Yeah, like when we do our training, even with the midget players, we'll do a circuit, whatever we're doing, and in that circuit, it has skill work. So they're juggling a tennis ball on their hockey stick, or a puck, right? Or we have this guy up in Dauphin, Manitoba, made this skating shooting machine. It's skill tech. It's a puck. It's like a bolt. To make it simple, the puck's on a bolt, and it's on a track system, and you just fire the puck, and it hits the spring and comes back. So your eye-hand coordination and how quick you can release that puck, all these different skills. For face-offs, you can do a bunch of different games on it. So we have those things. So that's in our circuits. We're doing skill stuff, especially with the kids, the young kids. It's mostly skills with some balancing and some push-ups and squats and lunges, some fun stuff, right? While you're passing a ball or something. So we tie all that in. Even the pros were doing skills. It's just when they do skills, it's skills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a bunch of other stuff. But the young kids, we tie it all in.
That answers that really well. I think that's, and I think that should feel reassuring for people here, because we're certainly getting. I mean, yeah, we have to fight sometimes to get the kiddos on the ice, but it certainly is availability. There's also plenty of open skate where they can just go and get the skates on and go around. My opinion is that they get enough, and it's interesting you brought up this hip thing, particularly somebody that has CAM and has FAI. That does concern me as well as they go through the teenage years, the sort of morphology of the bones and the shape of the acetabulum, and the potential for issues down the line. We want to avoid as much as possible, and I think that, if nothing else, at least as a medical practitioner, that's something I think about, and I can completely relate to what Aaron and Pat are thinking there. It's like, wow, let's maybe try a slightly different plane of motion here for a little while.
Yes.
Get into CrossFit, that's all sagittal instead of this sort of frontal plane stuff. But some last little bit, maybe this is taking it to a slightly different place, is we've talked about some technologies that inex. So we were talking about respiratory training. Now, obviously, the next question is going to be, well, hang on a minute. Cozy's just been talking about training the respiratory muscles and the respiratory system, but not sit-ups. I have a Spiro Tiger, and I've learned indirectly from you. I've learned some stuff from you, but I've learned from Dr. Nick Studholme, and learned bits and pieces just from looking at what Pat and Aaron have been doing. Any hints, tips, techniques, or thoughts, or even resources around when you'd want to start working on that? with resistance with a tool when it needs to be
Mhm.
with a device, how do you monitor it, and where are the best places to find out about that sort of thing, because it's not commonly done.
Mhm. It's as a it's so how I start that off is just let all your air out and don't breathe, and that's it. I don't say nothing. So people let all their air out, right? And then you'll see them go like that. I say, okay, so breathing's the most important thing in your life because if you don't breathe, you're dead. It's real simple, right? And how you breathe affects everything about you. And again, don't believe me. Do it. Play. Figure it out yourself. So the next time you're driving and someone cuts you off or you're late for work or whatever it is, late to get your kids to practice, watch what happens to your breathing when you get frustrated or angry. You'll hold your breath. Or if you breathe fast like that, you're probably psycho, right? You're probably great for hockey. Put a helmet on you and let you go. Right? So once you hold your breath, you're creating all this tension. So now they understand, okay, breathing is important, right? How I think is how I breathe, right? My wife, we taught with kids when she was teaching, grade 3, grade 4 kids, when they get in a little argument over a toy in the schoolyard, she'd go, hey, one EA would grab the one child and the other one would go to the other one and say, hey, smell my soup. What kind of soup is it? Can you smell the chicken noodle? And they go, yeah. Well, it's hot. I can't drink it. Blow it, cool it down. They're teaching them to breathe. And as soon as they change their breathing, they can't remember what they're at. They're mad at again. As soon as you change your breathing, you can't be angry. But don't breathe. Don't believe me. You got to practice this. And when you get angry, depending on how angry you get, you might need to practice that skill for a few months. But you can beat it. You can get rid of that, right? Using your breath. Those are basic skills, right? How do people breathe? Just watch how they breathe. Especially if you do a few squats, they'll breathe like most people breathe like this. Up the chimney, right? Frontal. So we've got everyone, as long as there was no problems at birth, every kid breathes properly. Just watch them. It looks like their belly's coming out. It is because the diaphragm, they're tiny. My daughter, she had a huge head when she was little. I was like, my God, I can't believe that body carries that head, right? It was just funny. But her body is so tiny that when the diaphragm goes down on the inhalation, it pushes the organs. That's why the belly comes out. As we get bigger, the belly shouldn't be coming way out. If it does, maybe you're a little shorter, right? And it might come out a little bit, but it's learning how to breathe properly. And all you have to do is remember it. So we go back to the story with the kids in school, 50% less homework. So if you look at me, for example, here's my rib cage. Let all the air out. Now watch. My rib cage is moving 360 in every direction, like a can, right? It goes out in every direction. We just have to play with the kids just to show them, give them a reference, right? And they remember it. Once they remember, we just have to now make that hair thicker strand called rope, so that they forget that. And what happens when they get a little so-called stress? Remember, stress, that's a word someone invented. They're all words. But when you say stress to me, I'm like, oh, what's the challenge? Let's go. It doesn't shut me down. My breathing actually settles down. That's a taught skill. So once we teach them how to breathe properly, we start paying attention to their narrative, get them to play with their narrative. We change those words. Stress is an opportunity. There's no problems unless I make it a problem. There's only situations. Anxiety is me thinking about the future. Depression is me thinking about the past, right? What's the difference? I'm right here. I can start changing those words. Yes, those words are very real if you believe it, but we shouldn't be teaching kids those words. We should be teaching them how to breathe. So we work on breathing and tying to the mental. Then from there, it's just like doing push-ups and sit-ups. After a while, I want to lift some weights. Now, here's the thing. The trachea, so from your mouth, your larynx down to your lungs, right? The garden hose. When you're young, it can expand. We can train it to be bigger so you can move more air. I'll give you an example. Young player. I had him when he was 14. He was huge, like 6'2" or something. He ended up being 6'4", 240. Still playing. Played minor pro and plays over in Germany. He at 14 he had a huge lung capacity, 5.2. In 3 years we trained him on. We were using the Spinal Tiger at that time. Now we have the NX. We trained him to. He got an 8.1 liter lung capacity.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
insane.
And the amount of air he can move. So, like on the Moxie, we know that every player skating full out can last 17 seconds plus or minus 3. That's pros, everyone, right? There's the odd guy that's outside that. Now, your recoveries around top guys can recover in 40 seconds all the way to 100 seconds, right? Give or take. The amount of air you move, so that when he was 14, he can move 150 liters, which was unreal. 150 liters, he would take 90 seconds to recover. 90 seconds. When he can move 300 liters of air, he could recover in 44 to 45 seconds. He was drafted in the 12th round to major junior. That means you don't make the team. He made the team. Then, within a year, he became the top 4. Then he became the top D because he could double shift. He could play 28 to 30 minutes a game because he could recover by blowing off the CO2 twice as fast. Not to talk about, we also put, I can't remember what it's called. It measures electrical activity on your muscles.
EMG?
If you do with the EMG, if you do a hanging leg raise, no swing, just lift your legs to your hands. You can do that 25 times. That's good, right? Now, measuring that electrical activity 3 to 4 times, breathing on the largest bag size, a 6-liter bag size, you can get 3 to 4 times more electrical activity on the respiratory muscles. Because core strength is from the inside out. Blow a balloon up and try and push your hands together. If it's right to the edge, no way. You can't push that balloon together. The 6-pack looks great on the beach. It's an exhalation muscle. It does some other things, but basically breathing's from the inside out. So with the respiratory machine, the younger we can get them on there, we can actually increase the trachea size. So when this hockey player went for his physical, they get him to blow into a spirometer. It measures how much air you can move out in 1 second in 6 seconds, right? And you divide those two numbers and you get a percentage. It should be 80% give or take, and then everything's good. His was like 70 or 68%. So the doctor says, well, you have sports-induced asthma or asthma, right? But he already knew, I already told him. He can move 8.1 liters of air. So that means he has to blow out 6.4 liters of air in 1 second. Impossible, because the size of the hose is too small. When we get them younger, we can make that trachea a little bigger, right? So getting them breathing when they're young for their health and increasing performance and lasting longer, recovering quicker on the ice. And then once you get into an NX machine, now you're going to make their core strength so good. Stabilization. The more you have muscle units. So when kids first start skating, they're like this. Most of their muscle units are just trying to keep them balanced, stabilized, right? As you get better, less muscle units have to stabilize and more can be for mobility. So your energy is more efficient. With the NX breathing machine, your core strength is so strong that you have less to use for stabilizers and more to use for mobilizing for skating. And basically from that, it's just like anything else. You're training respiratory muscles. When you're training muscles, you want to train speed, you want to train endurance, and you want to train strength and force and all those other things, right? So that's what we do. We have the players in the circuit, they're breathing. So they say they're doing a speed day, then as soon as they put the machine down for 30 seconds or a minute, then they're doing quick hands, or on that machine, quick hands, one touch, or they're on impulse, quick hands, right? Then they move to the next exercise, then the next exercise, and breathing's every second or third exercise. With pro guys, it's a little different, right? We actually have breathing sessions, right? And not even talking about recovery from hockey. You know this. Do you go to sleep right after a game, even from soccer?
Yeah.
No chance, right? So how do we recover them quicker, especially if you're playing a bunch of games? So with the NX, we can increase your CO2 level. We can do altitude training right here. That means increases your CO2 range. That means your health, less chance of disease, all these different things. But also, it's an anti-inflammatory, so you heal quicker and you sleep better. So our players, when they finish the game, they get their breathing back, and they get their food into them right away. They get their shake, then they eat their big meal. Then about 2 or 3 hours after, if you had a moxie on, you could see when the blood's back to your limbs. You don't need it. Wait 3 or 4 hours, and then you do a certain breathing technique, and you go to sleep. So that's how the little more depth of how we're using that training tool. To get information on it, I've mentored quite a few people around the world with it, and our NX is going to be coming out hopefully in July. We'll see. COVID really put us back there, but yeah, they can reach me or Evolve or yourself.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'm smiling because I've been sort of, by hearsay, sort of waiting for something affordable that works,
yeah.
that we can use on a sort of mass scale. So, yeah, that'll be exciting when that's finally released.
Yes. In my gym back in Canada, I would have a bunch of at that time Spiral Taggers. I would have a bunch, like 10 or 12, and then each player would have their user set, right? And then they would you and I would pair up with one machine. I would be doing push-ups or skills, and you're breathing, and then we'd switch, right? But all the players ended up buying their own machines, because when they go away, once they start, if they have the skill and they love the game, that machine stays with them. So in that, there'll be education courses, and it goes to your app, a phone on your app. So in there will be all the education courses.
All right, well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's exciting when you know what it can do.
Yes.
And I think our job is to bridge that education gap, so it becomes the norm across different sports. And also, I think about kids that do have, respiratory challenges. I'm not going to say that it's going to be a treatment for anything, but just simply from your description of somebody increasing the lung capacity and the usable capacity as well, the functional capacity. I mean, what a difference that could make to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially for guys like when you're talking about, and I'll just add that in before we go, is with sports-induced asthma or anything like that, COPD or any of those things, we can do so much with that. And the word's not bother, but it's something like that. When I see a kid that I have sports-induced asthma, I can't do this, or he short shifts, and then we get him, we say, okay, let's look at your breathing, and we adjust that, and man, it's just a hidden gem sitting there, right? But he was limited by his breathing.
And then you hear stories from parents that experienced that when they were growing up, and the last thing really you want is to have your child on some sort of agonist or medication for it. I mean, we do because
that's right,
because it helps. But I mean, if there's another way around that, then what a great option that would be.
Yes.
But it's not as easy as just a quick puff. You have to work at it. That's going to be the difficult part. You can't just okay, off I go. It requires a little bit of hard work and a little bit of attention.
Then you earn it. There's nothing like earning something, is there?
Oh yeah. Imagine when you're older being able to say, you know what, I had that, and I was able to overcome it by exercise and hard work, but I got there.
Yeah. Leading by example.
Look, this has been so informative, and I think a lot of people are going to get a huge amount out of this chat we've had here. And thanks for sharing your experiences, the anecdotes, your philosophy, and also your current work. I know you're having a big impact. You've had a big impact on a lot of very close friends of mine, and a lot of people around the industry as well. So that's my little tap, my hat tip to you.